thank you for joining us at the ever-improving No Soundbites Allowed podcast. My name is Michael Vasquez. We thank you for joining us in this adventure of describing the politics that go on in our nation on a personal and local level as often as possible, giving you, the audience, more than just 30 seconds to understand what's going on in our nation. We look forward to joining you as we go. Just sit back, enjoy the ride. Please remember, if you like the episodes, like it, share it, let other people know, and if you can, please donate, even if it's $2, even if it's $5, because it all makes a difference. We thank you, and here we go. Hello, and thank you all for joining us. That's right, this is Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, your host at No Soundbites Allowed, and I'm always pleased to have you here with us on every episode. I thank you. I thank every single one of you for the time that you spend with us here. Now, I wanted to talk about something that's important, and of course, it's the Newsflash. That's right. If you didn't know it by now, there was another school shooting in America, and this one happened to take place in Florida. I'm sure we've all heard about it by now. There were 17 deaths. It's atrocious. There is no positive thing to say about that. A 19-year-old killed other students and young individuals for no reason other than the evil in his heart, from what I can tell, and had planned to do even more evil in many other places. Reports are coming out now that he had notified and made posts on YouTube identifying himself as someone who wants to go to schools, and multiple schools, and to commit murder. And that's an evil. That's just evil. To say that you wish to go out and kill children, that's just evil. There's no two ways about it. So I will not take a moment, as we have with all of the shooters prior. We will not mention the shooter's name. We're not going to glorify that shooter by that. In fact, that'll never happen. I don't agree with it, and I will not use the image of the shooter either. But this shooting is, I've been doing this over 10 years now. And consistently, I keep coming back. One of the most important and consistent things that I wind up talking about episode after episode after episode is that I talk about gun control, guns in the United States, mass shootings, regular shootings on a regular basis. I mean, this is something for a decade I have been consistently talking about. And it's something that's given me a great deal of observation because I do a lot of homework. I look at the FBI data. I look at the crime statistics. I look at New York State. They have a report which is called the GIVE. That's G.I.V.E. which is just a report on gun violence in the state of New York. I look at dozens and dozens of reports by the various colleges and institutions on this subject. What is the actual gun violence? What is the result of the gun violence? Where are the causes of the gun violence? I've been doing this for over a decade. And sadly, there are enough events that happen in the past decade and for the last 40 years that you can have regular episodes on this. But the thing that gets me is, in all that time, I have found a consistency that continues to happen to this day. And that's the reason why I'm doing this podcast today, because of what I encountered throughout this day today and also yesterday. And let's just start very simply with, first of all, we all condemn gun violence. I don't know anyone who promotes gun violence. To say that anyone in America is promoting gun violence is an ignorant statement. because there is no one who has ever promoted gun violence. There is no one, let me rephrase that, no one of a rational mind that has ever promoted gun violence. There is no one who is promoting gun deaths that has in a right state of mind. There is no one who says that the death of students and kids and children is a positive. No one has, the death of innocents, that it's a positive. No one has ever said that of any party, of any political belief, of any kind. I haven't seen anyone. The neo-Nazis don't even advocate this. I'm serious. I don't know of anyone who has ever advocated for it. So anytime and every time that I see people trying to say that this group or that group advocates for the death of anyone through gun violence, I have to sit back and say, you really haven't paid attention, because no one's ever said that. No one has done anything to make you believe that. What we have is a discussion about how best to resolve this. How do we remove the gun violence from our nation? How do we reduce it? How do we protect our children? How do we make sure innocents are safe? That's the discussion. And I have not heard anyone ever not have that discussion that's in their sound mind. But there are many, many people who interpret and reinterpret what's going on as, well, these guys don't agree with me, so they must, therefore, be in favor of gun violence. And I've found this for a decade now, actually more, that I've heard people go, well, you don't agree with what I believe, so you must want to have gun violence. You're advocating gun violence. And that is an ignorant statement, because I've never heard that from anyone. I've heard lots of people have different opinions, and I'm talking about politicians, candidates, politicos like myself who do nothing but look at gun legislation, that go and create gun legislation, who influence gun legislation. None of them have ever tried to do anything but reduce gun violence. But I listen to the average person as they repeat back bullet points and talking points and 30-second sound bites and parts of commercials, and they completely miss the point. And God help us, memes are the worst thing possible. And that's what I'm talking about today, because I'm getting assaulted today because I very, very simply said that the answer is not gun restriction legislation, something I've said for over a decade, because that is not the root cause of gun violence. That's not what is driving this. The fact that guns exist is not making gun violence. The fact that people have access to guns doesn't make gun violence. They're not the root cause. The root cause, as far as I have been able to determine for the last decade, the only thing that's consistent are individuals who are mentally unstable, if not mentally deranged, who are seeking glory and fame and instantaneous attention, and who have very warped ideas about the world. That is the consistency I see. And that is something that we see all the time. Now, beyond that, there are other factors you may want to pull out, and there's certain things that are more consistent than other things. But the key thing, the root cause, is a mental instability, not the gun. Because we also see these individuals use knives and bricks and their hands and baseball bats and cars and bombs all the time. The mental deficiency is not limited to guns. It's to the way these people think and act. And that is the important thing to keep in mind. But people miss that. But I really want to get into what happened today. And I'm going to bring you this I want you to go with me on my trip through my day, the last 24 hours of what I've been experiencing. And I want you to understand, look at it from the eyes of a decade of looking at the facts, not the emotion, the facts, and think about where we are today. because nothing has changed in over a decade of me talking about this. And you have to ask yourself why. But before I get there, let's take a break. And I'll collect my thoughts so I can, because I don't script this. This is all live. So I want to make sure that I can present this to you as succinctly and easily as I can. So bear with me. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. And I'm really going to get into this for you. So 1 second, and here we go. Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be back with you here at No Soundbites Allowed. That's right, this is the Dragon of the Southern Tier, Michael Voss, with you. And we're going to be talking about a couple things here very soon. As a matter of fact, we're going to go with... Newsflash. The newsflash isn't the fact that there was another mass shooting in America. And it's not that that mass shooting took place at a school. Because quite honestly, these things have not changed. We've had 40 years of mass shootings recorded and documented and tracked, 40 years. And quite honestly, the number is incredibly consistent. There's about 20 mass shootings a year, every year in the United States for the last 40 years. Doesn't change. And in those mass shootings, we see that normally the average is about 20 people being shot or injured, some fatally, in those mass shootings. That hasn't changed in 40 years. No matter what legislation you've heard about, no matter what people have proposed, and quite honestly, you've only heard one thing proposed for 40 years. And every time over the last 40 years, the same answer gets the same result. And the answer is, and the cycle goes something like this. There's a mass shooting. There's an outcry by many politicians saying this is how terrible this is. It's horrible. And we need to restrict the guns so that we can make people safe. That is the constant message. We need to get rid of these guns and people will be safe. If we could only stop people from having access to the guns, people will be safe. And you'll be able to sleep at night and no one will ever be hurt again if we just remove the guns. And then there's a slew of laws that come out that restrict various types of guns, usually based on the look of the gun, not the actual function of that firearm. And those firearms are harder to get. And then immediately thereafter, after those laws are enacted, there's continuously the same number of mass shootings consistently, regardless of what law has been passed, regardless of what restriction has been put in place. That's not me saying that. You can go to look at Harvard. You can look at any of the larger institutions, educational institutions. Many professors have done the reports. It's consistent. It's always consistent. Because the guns and access to them, to the firearms, is not the root cause. It never has been. It never will be. That's not the answer. So whether we stop people from having Glocks or AR-15s or shotguns that have, that are painted black and have a pistol grip, doesn't really matter. And I've spent years going over what the real numbers are. You know what? The average mass shooting, on average, over 40 years, the fact is that about 1.2 of all mass shootings have or use a long rifle. That's it. 1.2. And there's normally about 2 deaths per mass shooting on average for the last 40 years because of a long rifle. That's it. And if you look at the numbers consistently and look at any number that has to do with gun violence, and you'll find out instantly that roughly 55% of all gun violence takes place with handguns. Except you hear no politician ever talk about we need to restrict people's access to handguns. You don't. Even Governor Cuomo, with his SAFE Act, didn't say we need to remove handguns. He wanted to limit the amount of bullets, the magazines, the size of the magazine that goes into the firearms, but not to take away the handguns themselves. I have to ask you, if the majority, 55% of all gun violence happens with a handgun, and you're telling us that we need to make people safe, and you're talking about the single lowest incident firearm being used in mass shootings of all types, of all shootings of all types, the lowest incident is a long rifle, otherwise known as, by the media, an assault rifle. That is the least used item. Shotguns are used more on average, and so are handguns. Rifles are not. And they're attacking rifles. It's because they're not addressing the root cause. They're addressing a symptom that shows up. A rifle is flashy. A rifle is in movies. People can picture that and think, oh, that must be something. It looks scary to some people. It's intimidating to some people. It stands out in people's memory. So they attack that because they don't want to address the root cause. That's what I found over 10 years. And if you look at the data, the FBI, everyone's data, if you look at the actual data, take out the emotion, look at the numbers, you'll come to the same conclusion every single time. Rifles aren't the problem. They never have been. The consistency is the same regardless of the change in laws. And the laws change are always the same thing. There's the other part of the problem. So the first part is we're looking at the wrong thing. Restricting firearms, especially restricting rifles, has no impact because it is not the root cause. At the same time, the legislation, which is there to restrict those firearms, is immaterial. It has no impact. It is useless. If gun restriction legislation was the answer, if gun control was the solution, we would have resolved all mass shootings 40 years ago. It's just that simple. Let's be honest, people. It's just that simple. If it were just about restricting guns, we would see the evidence. Chicago wouldn't be Chicago. Detroit wouldn't be Detroit. We would have the lowest incidence anywhere in the world if it was just as simple about, oh, well, you just need to remove the rifles. And that's it. And then everyone's safe. And we would have seen it. Governor Cuomo in 2013 made the huge promise that the New York SAFE Act would remove the violence and make people safe. And if you look at the numbers from New York State, by New York State, from each of 17 metropolitan areas, that's the GIVE report, you'll see violence has actually increased, not decreased. The number of murders and homicides with guns increased. It didn't decrease. But the SAFE Act is there. And you can look at California, you can look at Chicago, Baltimore, Detroit. Look at every place that has the strongest gun restriction laws, and you will see there is either no impact or an increase in the violence. Their restrictions did nothing. And I'm sorry to say this for people who think, well, that's That's got to be the answer. That's it. Just take away the guns. That will help. I can sleep at night knowing that we helped to take away the guns. I'm sorry. You're going to sleep falsely. You're pulling wool over your eyes. Politicians and people who are taking advantage of you are pulling the wool over your eyes and taking away your freedom and giving you nothing in return. You're absolutely no safer. I've done this for a decade. I have 100 articles on this over a decade. I've done research for a decade. It doesn't change. But what we do see that has changed, and as I mentioned, and as I'm going on here, what we do see change is the way that the media and the avenues of media have changed. In particular, we have social media, far, far bigger than when in 2007 when I was doing this. And in 2007, there was I believe it was Columbine, and I had written an article back on April 18th of 2007, which you can see at mvass.com. And on that article, on April 18th of 2007, I said, and one of the most important things that I said was, the problems, and I'm quoting, quote, "The problem does not lie with guns or gun control. I accept that the regulations in place may be too lax, improvement is needed. But there is no gun that can kill anyone on its own. The person wielding the gun holds the responsibility. The sick, no, that's the wrong word. Vile and evil is more accurate. People that commit these acts would likely try to do the same thing with a knife or sword or other weapon. It's not the old Bugs Bunny cartoons that people have watched since the 1940s. The problem is with the people and not their tools or kiddie television." That's a direct quote. But what has changed from 2007, when I said that about the mass shooting in Columbine at that time, and what happened yesterday in Florida, is we have social media now. Far, far more social media. And within 24 hours of the shooting, I had a gentleman who I know very well, known him for 40 years, 45, he shared a post, which is directly political, and it's meant to make an attack. And here's what it says. The meme, which you may have seen, has an image of 6 individuals who had committed mass shootings. 26 dead, 12 dead, 9 dead, 9 dead, 27 dead, 57 dead. It gives you an idea of each of the shootings that happened over the last couple of years. And it says in there, because all of them are white men, the meme says, "Tell me again how Muslims and immigrants are a threat to America." It then goes on to say, "GOP/NRA, kill." That is probably one of the biggest pieces of propaganda and the most illogical and, more importantly, incendiary things I've seen in quite some time. That's social media for you. That's a meme. It's meant to play on emotions and make people believe something that has absolutely no truth to it whatsoever. It takes 6 people out of a decade of mass shootings that I have followed. And it says, oh, there's 6 people. So it can't be anything else but the fact that that there's a Second Amendment out there. And because there's a Second Amendment, well, then anyone who supports it, in particular the GOP, the Republican Party, and the NRA must be evil. Well, that's just stupid. That's just stupid. I know lots of Democrats who own guns and are very responsible gun owners, just like I know lots of libertarians, conservatives, and Republicans that are gun owners and are incredibly responsible. One has nothing to do with the other. Nothing at all. That's like saying, I have a suntan, so I'm going to go and crash my car. That's stupid. It makes no sense. It's illogical. But this is asking that. So when I said to that meme, when I saw this, and you've probably seen this meme over the last 24 hours, my answer very simply was 9/11. Because I'm addressing the question it's asking. How can Muslims, and I'm talking about fanatical Muslims, which is my point there, fanatical Muslims were took out the 9/11, took out the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, killed thousands of Americans. Thousands. And they are a threat. They have continuously promised, and made a point of saying they're going to kill every single American. Mind you, they didn't say they're going to kill all the Republicans. They didn't say they're going to kill the conservatives. They didn't say they were going to kill white people or black people. They didn't say they were going to kill Jews. They said they're going to kill everyone in America. Every man, woman, and child in America, because we exist. That's something that Iran has been saying for 35 years. 35 years, they've said they're going to kill everyone in America because we're Americans. So, yeah, there's your threat. As it happens, they are Muslim, but they're fanatical Muslims. But the bigger thing is they're terrorists. And they're using terror, and that's one of their tactics. So you should be fully aware and fearful. Only a fool looks at someone who says they're going to commit harm and tells you and reminds you consistently that they want to kill you. And only a fool says, well, I won't pay attention to that. As is the case with this shooter in Florida, as we're learning. That shooter went on YouTube and told anyone who would watch YouTube that he was going to commit mass murder. And YouTube took down his video and told someone in the government, and it didn't go anywhere. He mentioned his name, and he mentioned that he was going to commit this crime, and no one reacted. That's like Al-Qaeda telling us before 9/11, we're going to grab a bunch of planes, we're going to crash it into a bunch of buildings, we're going to kill thousands of Americans, and we're going to do it on 9/11. And we went, hey, that's interesting that they made that. Not paying attention. That's ridiculous. That's insulting. And so is this meme. Because this meme insults the intelligence of everyone who's been alive for the last, 10 years, 30, 40. I've been alive for 50. And you know what? Anyone who's been alive that long has seen this over and over and over again. And the only thing that's consistent is that the individuals who commit these crimes, these vile acts, are deranged individuals. That's it. Criminals, by the way. Almost every single one of them was. All but 3 in the last, 2-3 decades have committed these crimes with illegal weapons. Illegally obtained, illegally used weapons. It's insulting. It's insulting. But that meme is meant not to try and help anyone. It's a political statement. It's a political attack. It's using the deaths of individuals to promote a political agenda, but it's using emotion to confuse people and say, well, it's all emotional. And I had a huge argument today, nearly got fired at my job because I was talking with this gentleman and explaining very simply, it doesn't matter if they were black or white. It doesn't matter if they were Christian or Jewish or Muslim. The only thing that stays consistent, the only thing that matters is they're mentally deranged individuals who decided to kill innocent human beings. And the means by which they did that, whether it was a bomb like in Columbine and many other places, or a handgun like 90% of these things, or if it was a rifle, doesn't really make a difference. Or actually in New York State, we saw late last year, how many times have we seen them use cars? It doesn't matter. They're deranged individuals trying to kill innocent people. Now, I've been going on for a little while here, and I think, yes, it's definitely time for a break. So I'm going to stop for a moment. I'm going to come back, and I'm going to go into a little bit more. But I hope this is making you ask a question. If you look back over a decade, what's the one thing that's consistent in every single mass shooting you keep seeing? Think about that. But we're going to be right back, and we'll talk a little bit more. And I thank you for being here. But my name is Michael Voss, and I'll be right back. Oh, oops, cut that off by accident. I apologize. This is Michael Voss at No Soundbites Allowed, your host here at, and I'm the Dragon of the Southern Tier. Threw myself off. I apologize. I was just looking through some of my material. And I have to tell you, when I was looking back, I mentioned one of the first articles I had done when I started doing the political commentary before I really understood how well to do it. At the very beginning, back in April of 2007, we were talking about gun violence then and a mass shooting at a school in particular. And, there was, go flash forward to, I believe it was December 18th of 2012. And this can be found on YouTube. I made a video talking about, it was right after we had Sandy Hook and that mass shooting at a school with children. And we heard Governor Cuomo and his plans to enact the New York SAFE Act. And I mentioned how that's absolutely ridiculous, because whether it's a steak knife that everyone has in their houses, whether it's a hammer, or whether it's a shotgun I had at the time, or any other firearm, that if a crazy person's using it, someone who's mentally deranged, they're going to find a way. And whether it's a bomb, a gun, whatever it is, they'll do it. And we've seen that consistently. And here we are in 2018, and the same discussion is being had. We need to address the root cause, which is the mental illness. That's the first and most important thing. The first thing is the mental illness. Second thing that we need to address, the glorification that we have for these mass shooters. The fact that each and every time we are watching people be glorified, where their name is being used across the nation. They're all over YouTube. They're all over Facebook. They're all over social media by name with their picture. And they find that to be attractive because they're warped individuals. They don't see the world that we do. They're seeing their name in headlights and thinking, I'm famous. And in a world where we have literally forgotten how to separate infamy from fame, because they're not the same thing, but nowadays they're the same thing in the media. Social media accepts someone as being infamous as the same as they're being famous, and they get treated in the same manner. These deranged, crazy people see that as glorification. That's the second part that we need to address, and we really need to take care of that and stop glorifying them. Not necessarily that we see it that way, but because crazy people who are deranged see it that way. That's the second part of this. Let's deal with the mental illness, and let's stop glorifying them. Let's stop giving them something to look forward to. And the third thing is we need discipline. We need discipline in our kids. We need discipline in the youth of America, both in teaching them how to properly use a firearm and also how to protect themselves from people with firearms, how to use a firearm, and how to deal with these kind of situations. And more importantly, to have enough respect for the firearm and themselves to not use this. We have a generation right now that doesn't know enough to not eat Tide Pods. That's a fact. We have a generation that doesn't know that they shouldn't smoke bath salts. And people are asking, why do we have a generation that goes out and does mass shootings at schools? And they have a question about, well, why do they think that this is glorification? In a generation that has Jersey Shore and the housewives of wherever, Bumble America, they're out there. Instant gratification, instant fame. And we're saying to ourselves, gee, I can't imagine why someone who is mentally deranged and wants attention, that they're looking to get that attention instantly by killing other people. I can't imagine why that would be a connection they would make, except we see it every day. And we saw it the last time there was this mass shooting. They saw it too. We need to do something about that. Those are the three things. Discipline, so we know not to, so the kids know that there are repercussions and that they shouldn't use a firearm that way, and that these are deadly weapons, and to treat them with respect as well as themselves. We need to address the fact that we're glorifying these people and stop doing that in the news media. It's not worth the extra eyeballs and the extra ratings to be able to glorify and promote and continue this cycle of madness. And lastly, we have to remember that these are crazy, deranged people that we need to identify. Some of them need to be medicated. Some of them need to be locked up. We need to be aware that these people are running around and they are potential dangers to everyone, themselves and everyone else around them. And that doesn't matter whether they use a car, a bomb, a firearm, or anything else, because they use all of the above. Sometimes all at the same time. And this is something a decade has shown us. And to tell me that the only answer is the same answer for the last 40 years, which is we're going to restrict guns. And we've done it, and we keep doing it. Obama had 32 executive orders to restrict firearms. We saw the New York SAFE Act. We've seen legislation in Chicago and California and Baltimore and Detroit. We've seen some of the strongest gun legislations that provide everything that we've heard Democrats and others say, all the people who are against the Second Amendment. We've seen everything that they've ever asked for being enacted that exists right now and has existed for over a decade, for 20 years in some places. The greatest, strongest legislations to protect people, and it does nothing. I'll give you a great example, Chicago. Right now, and here's something that a lot of people, and this is one of the things that upset me. People are talking about, oh, we've got to protect people from guns. Okay. You have all of the strongest regulations to restrict guns in Chicago. And in Chicago, this year, 2018, on February 15th, as of February 12th, 3 days ago, there were 249 people who had been shot and assaulted with firearms. There were well over 30 people who had died. 7 of them were children under the age of 18. 7 of them were children under the age of 18. At least 2 of them were the age of 10 and 11. There are daily shootings in the city of Chicago. Daily. It is one of the deadliest places on the face of the earth. And it is the deadliest place in the United States. Period. And they have the strongest gun restriction legislation. The greatest amount of gun control. And they've had it for well over a decade. And it does nothing. It makes no one safer. If I don't understand. I hear these people talk about, oh, we got to do something. Look at Chicago. It is the example of the proof that gun restriction legislation in and of itself does nothing. If you don't address the root cause, it doesn't protect anyone, because the criminals, the criminally insane, continue to use their firearms and knives and bombs and cars to kill people every day. And they don't care what the law says. The law helps someone who's law-abiding go to sleep at night thinking that they're going to be safer because someone said, we banned that gun. It doesn't mean that gun is banned. It doesn't mean a criminal won't get that gun. It doesn't mean someone who's criminally deranged isn't going to find that firearm and use it. And if they can't, they'll use a bomb. And if they can't, they'll use a car. And if they can't, they'll use their hands. It's just the honest truth. Can we please stop trying to restrict freedoms? Can we stop trying to blame it on anything and everything except for what it actually is? Let's deal with the 3 major problems that I can see. Let's deal with those major root causes and fix the problem. Because I guarantee you, we will do another round of gun restrictions. We'll do another round of banning this gun and that gun. We'll limit the size of magazines. We'll say, oh, just because it has a pistol grip, it must be evil. And everyone who has a firearm with a pistol grip is evil. And we'll go out there and restrict rifles. Maybe we'll restrict shotguns. We'll ignore handguns once again. And I guarantee you, within a very short period of time, we're going to see the same thing happen. Because it doesn't matter. The bans don't work. The restrictions don't work. We're talking about people who don't care what the law says. They don't care. If they cared 40 years ago, we wouldn't have this problem. Obviously, it doesn't work. Stop playing the emotions. Deal with the reality. Because that is the only way we will get this resolved. And I have to say, I am bone tired of having this argument. I have hundreds of articles written on this. I have dozens, if not hundreds of hours of discussing this issue publicly at speeches, on YouTube, and articles. I've been talking about this for over a decade, and it has not changed, and my message has not changed, and it won't change because the root problem hasn't changed. And until we address that, and until we stop playing these stupid games and these memes and blaming people who have nothing to do with it and blaming laws that have nothing to do with it, we are going to continue to see this happen. It's a sad truth. But this is a little bit more of a rant of an episode, so I apologize. On Saturday, we'll have our regular episode. But for now, I'm going to leave you with a somewhat happier thought, I hope. And I hope everyone has a good rest of the week. And God bless those who we have lost. I feel condolences for all of the families that have been affected. And let's hope we can stop for a second and deal and compose ourselves enough to deal with the real problem here so we don't have to have another family go through this again. I truly mean that. But I'll speak with you all again on Saturday. Thank you.